Okay, this is take two. Apparently my mic wasn't on. We are a tech company. However, sometimes I script a little bit. So anyway, we're going to try this again. I think we only have one or two live viewers right now, but the video will be on YouTube if you want to come back and watch it. So anyway, I'm going to get started. Thursday, January 22nd, 2015, that's today. I want to talk about a few openings that are coming up and then answer a couple of user questions. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, the Twin Cities area. The Metropolitan Council is a regional housing provider, and it manages the largest Section 8 program in the state of Minnesota. It's opening its Section 8 waiting list from February 24th to February 27th, 2015. It's the first time it's been open since 2007, and they're expecting more than 60,000 applications. It's online only. It's a random lottery where 2,000 applications will be selected. 95% of the waiting list slots will be awarded to locals, folks who have either are local residents or work or go to school locally. 5% of the waiting list slots may be given to those who aren't from the area, out of state, or whatever. And it's important to note that this does not cover the city of Minneapolis or the city of St. Paul, and that this is the metro area outside of the two major cities. There's actually a great map showing the Metropolitan Council's coverage area, and we link to that from our Metropolitan Council page on our website. If you just go to our Open Section 8 waiting list page, scroll down to the Metropolitan Council link, click on it, you'll get all the information you need. Moving on, Ferndale, Michigan. We just learned about this one. It's in the Detroit metro area. The Ferndale Housing Commission is opening its Section 8 waiting list on January 26th. That's next week. A closing date hasn't been announced, but we don't think that that's necessarily relevant because they're taking only the first 5,000 applications. So since it's in a metro area and it's online, we'd expect them to get 5,000 applications pretty quickly, and it appears that they're shutting down the application process after that. So it's very likely if you don't apply on the first day of applications, you may not make it onto the lottery selection round. It is a random lottery. They're selecting 1,000 applications to be added to the waiting list. So that means that you have about a 1 in 5 chance. Again, it's online only, and we have links to the application and other pertinent information to the official Ferndale Housing Commission website, all in our Ferndale pages. Okay, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Learned about Chattanooga last week, this is interesting. They say they're creating a, quote, new list, which implies that there's no one left on the old waiting list. It's interesting because that would also mean that the first folks that end up at the top of the new list would be housed relatively quickly. So this may be an opportunity for some folks in Chattanooga that really, had little hope of housing a few weeks ago, might actually see something in the near future. The list is opening up on January 26th, and it's 1 day only. 1 day. It's an online application. You may not apply on paper. You can't go to the Housing Authority office. It has to be done online. And this is an interesting one. First time we've seen it, but you have to have a Gmail account to apply. Gmail is free. It's the mail service of Google. We're assuming the Housing Authority is using something like Google Forms, but you have to have a Gmail account to apply. We would recommend that you get that Gmail account set up before January 26th. If you don't already have one, remember it's 1 day only. You don't want to be fooling around trying to set up a Gmail account that day. Gmail is free. We have a link to setting up a new free Gmail account on Google. We have that on the Chattanooga pages. So go ahead and get that set up. It's a random lottery. They're going to choose 1,000 applications after the application period closes. And they'll be posting the 1,000 applicants using a unique anonymous identifier on their website on February 2nd. If your unique ID doesn't appear on the website on February 2nd, that means you weren't selected in the random lottery. You'll be issued that unique ID, of course, when you submit your application on the 26th. Okay, Spokane, Washington. I covered it a little bit in prior reports. I'll mention it again today. It opens next week on the 26th. It closes on the 30th. It's online only. They will select through a random lottery 600 applications to be added to the waiting list. And the applicants who applied in 2014 for last year's waiting list have to reapply. If you weren't selected last year, your name was purged. So you have to apply again. And a link to all the relevant pages, the official Spokane housing websites are available on our website on the Spokane pages. As far as recently closed, one notable one I want to mention is Atlanta. It closed last week. They haven't given out any preliminary estimates on the number of applications, but if traffic to our site is any indication, there was a lot. I think we had, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 folks come to our website looking for details about the Atlanta Housing Authority opening just in the few days that it was open. So we would expect to see several thousand applications when they finally release that information. I did make a call last week and spoke to an official at the Atlanta Housing Authority, and they were still waiting on their third-party technology provider to give them the final report and tally on how many applications and all that good stuff. So whenever we get that information, we'll make sure that we update our Atlanta pages on our website and post it to our social media channels. So stay posted there. Okay, on to a couple of questions. Billie Jean asked on Facebook, can I take my voucher with me when I move? And if so, how do my income requirements change? Well, I think I covered the part about moving with your voucher before. That's called porting. And so what Billie Jean is asking is, can she port her voucher out of one city and port it into another? And the answer is yes. Once you have had a voucher for at least 12 months and resided in a city where that voucher was issued, you are eligible to port that voucher to another housing authority anywhere in the country. It could be next door to it in a different county or city. It can be the next state over, or you can literally port from Maine to Hawaii or wherever. There's nothing that says you can't take that voucher with you anywhere. However, there's lots of rules that are attached to it, and the second part of Billie Jean's question is, how do my income requirements change? Well, your income requirements will change to that of the housing authority you're porting to. So if you're porting from a high-cost area to a low-cost area, that means that your income must be lower at your new location than at your old location. So let's say that you're in San Francisco. It's one of the highest cost areas in the country, and you've got a $40,000, $50,000 a year income, which qualifies you for a voucher. I don't know if that's the exact number to qualify, but let's say a family of 4 with an income of $50,000 qualifies in San Francisco. You move to the Midwest, much lower cost area. There's no way in most places in the Midwest that $50,000 will qualify you for a voucher. So if let's say you had a job in San Francisco that allows you to telecommute from the Midwest, you couldn't actually keep your voucher, you couldn't port in, just because you have to meet the income requirements of that new area you're moving to. And remember, there's lots of other requirements that you're going to have to adhere to when you move to, so you need to really check with that housing authority that you're porting your voucher to make sure that you comply with everything. So again, we recommend contacting both the housing authority you're leaving and the housing authority you're moving to make sure that you meet everything. So next question comes from Cassandra on Google+. She actually asked the question last week. I had my technical fail 1.0 before today's 2.0 fail, and wasn't able to get to her question, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it today. And her question is, can you elaborate on criminal background checks and standards and the application process and how those checks work with housing authorities? And that's a great question, and it can be fairly complex. Fortunately, the National Housing Law Project has a really great website. They have lots of resources for low-income renters. Josh is throwing it up on the screen right now. And this particular page on the National Housing Law Project covers the basic requirements for housing authorities and what they have to meet in order to screen someone. And the page is entitled Model PHA Policies on Screening Applicants for a Criminal Record. We'll make sure that we put up a link on the Google+, Facebook, and Facebook pages when we're finished, so that anyone who wants to take a look at this can. You need to understand that federal law dictates to the housing authorities there's certain minimum requirements under federal law that they have to adhere to when qualifying someone for a voucher. And those minimum requirements are, one, a individual, a voucher applicant, or anyone in the household that's over 18. Remember, household members also have to go through a criminal background check. So the applicant or any other member of the household who's over 18 cannot qualify. The entire household is disqualified if any member of the household is subject to a lifetime sex offender registration, is convicted of manufacturing methamphetamine on the premises of a federally assisted housing property, or is evicted from a federally assisted housing property for drug-related criminal activity, unless the applicant or person who committed the crime has gone through a supervised drug rehab program. So, in addition to that, public housing authorities can actually deny housing or a voucher to an applicant based on less, a lower degree criminal activity if it's occurred in the last 3 years, and they kind of have a little bit of flexibility in establishing those rules. So you really need to check with each and every housing authority that you're considering applying to see what their rules are. In recent years, we've noted that there's been a couple of housing authorities that have considered loosening the requirements for ex-offenders. Most notably, I know New Orleans last year, the year before, took up the conversation of whether or not to loosen ex-offender requirements because there were a lot of folks that were being missed by the system, and I'm not sure that they ever actually changed any of the rules, but at least there was a discussion happening. So remember to check with each housing authority that you're interested in applying to, if you or someone in your household may have had some sort of criminal activity. I'll note that the housing authority may consider mitigating circumstances that, in order to I guess, make an exception, and those, they take into consideration the seriousness of the crime, how the crime affected the safety of other residents and the housing authority staff, the length of time since the last offense, the age of the offender at the time of the offense, and any evidence of recent rehab, such as current employment, job training, or education that that you're going through. And then lastly, the housing authority will not consider, when evaluating criminal backgrounds, unproven allegations, arrests that didn't result in convictions, expunged, purged, or sealed convictions, or juvenile adjudications that don't qualify as convictions. And if the criminal history is for someone in the household that isn't the applicant or the head of household, the housing authority will actually give you the opportunity to remove that person from the household before denying admission to the program. So let's say there's an 18-year-old child in the household that has a conviction on his or her criminal record. If that child was removed from the application, then you could move forward and obtain the voucher as long as they weren't living in the household. And these rules apply to not only the voucher program, but to the public housing program too. Most housing authorities administer them pretty much the same. And my summary came from the National Housing Law Project. Josh threw it up on the screen, and we're posting a link to it. That is a great summary. A great place to get you started, and then you can contact the housing authority for any more details. So that's all I have for today. I'm really sorry about the technical glitches, but I think we're starting to get used to doing this now, and next week we'll try and do a better job of doing it right the first time. Thanks, and have a good day.